Half Size Me, episode 654, brought to you by the amazing Half Size Me Academy. To join us, please go to halfsizeme.com/join. Hello, and welcome back to another Half Size Me show. I am your host, Heather. And as always, I am thrilled to be here with you today. But this is not just any episode. This is one in a series of interviews that I'm doing for potential long term coaching candidates for our podcast premium subscribers. They have access to Carolina's coaching series, Sarah's coaching series, and now we're going to be releasing season 3 of a brand new coaching series. So you are going to get to hear Robin and Jackie, and this week you're going to get to meet Sarah. And you get to see her. Well, there's two different ways. One, you could be listening to the podcast and listening to her story there. But if you want to see Sarah, get to know her a little bit more intimately, we are actually releasing the videos, the full length videos to our YouTube channel so you can actually see the candidates before voting. We're going to actually be doing our voting the week of September the 2nd. So you will get a ballot if you are a podcast premium subscriber. So two things you can do today. One, go to my YouTube channel, sign up and subscribe there so you can get all of these episodes and any new content that I'm releasing. And then number two, you can go become a podcast premium subscriber so you can actually get to follow this person through their entire coaching journey. And that's going to last 3 to 6 months. And it's good for you to hear their ups and downs and all the things they go through because you can learn a lot for yourself in their journey. And to do that, you just go to halfsizeme.com/fan. All right, now without any further ado, we're going to go into Sarah's coaching call. And that way you can hear that. And if you didn't get a chance to, go back and watch Robin or listen to Jackie from the first two that went out the previous 2 weeks. You have a great week, and I'll be back next week. All right, lovely listeners and people who are watching, because we are recording this video live as well. I want to welcome you to the show. And then I have been we have had such an exciting experience. We have selected some candidates for the long-term coaching that will be going on the podcast premium. And Sarah is one of our lovely candidates. So Sarah, I'm going to turn the microphone. I'm going to have you say hi to everybody. I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. And basically what I would love to know from you, and I know the listeners would too, is just a little bit about your background. Like where did weight or body image issues become a thing for you that's kind of brought you to the place you are now?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I my weight, I guess, originally my issues started probably around 10th or age 10 or 11. So it's kind of been a lifelong battle. Started with some food insecurities when I was young and not having enough to eat, and then having access to food later and uh, sneaking it and hiding it and eating food. And always feeling like I was hoarding some because I wasn't sure if there was going to be enough. So I think that that's really where a lot of my original issues started. I kind of stayed slim until I was in my mid-teens when I actually was a teenage mom. So I had children very young and gained weight with each pregnancy. So and kind of just ballooned from there. So I went to my first Weight Watchers meeting when I was probably 18 or 19. Did all of the crazy diets, the military diet, and cabbage soup, and all of the different things that everybody does. And I never had really lasting success with any of that.
Okay.
Um, so ended up around 265 pounds. And in 2018, I had weight loss surgery. So I went and had a gastric sleeve done, and I lost only about 45 pounds immediately from that. Like, my honeymoon phase was really small.
Okay.
Anybody who's had it knows that you learn how to eat around your sleeve pretty easy. You learn what foods don't bother you and when you don't have restriction, and how to still overeat. So if you haven't dealt with your mental overeating issues, it doesn't. So everybody seems to know that at this point, but it definitely wasn't an easy fix. And so then I would end up back in Weight Watchers or something like that. And then I found a program prior to HSM that I did to help me start working on my mental health, my mental well-being, and dealing with my food issues and my food insecurity and my emotional eating. So I did that for a while and made huge strides with my mental part of it, but had gained weight. I gained about 10 pounds. So I was back on the Weight Watchers again
Hmm.
and got that down. And then I found HSM a little over a year ago. I know I found my maintenance calories last year at this exact time. So
Okay.
July I is when I took a month to really dial in and figure out and to learn what my maintenance calories are so that I could then I never really counted calories. All the diets I've been on all these years, calorie counting was never really one I stuck with because
Hmm.
uh, I was always looking for some shiny object, some plan, some magic bullet, or somebody to tell me just eat these things and this will it'll fix it, right? And
Right.
then, but of course, it never does. So,
Yeah.
learning how uh, by doing the paper pencil journal and following all of your videos, I've been able to at least find a balance where I can feed myself in a healthy way, take, you know, that maintenance when I need it, and continue my slow progress, which I'm 100% okay with slow progress. So,
Yeah, well, and tell us just so we have a point of reference. So when you started all of this to where you are now, what does that progress look like?
so like I said, I started at 265, and by the time I got done with my weight loss surgery phase, I was around 220. And then I lost a little more with Weight Watchers. But when I started HSM, I was 190. So that was about this time last year. And this month, right now, my average weight is 177.5. So,
Hey, that's
yeah, I lost
awesome.
like 13 pounds last year overall, which was perfect.
Perfect.
So, yeah,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
so that then brings us so what I love about what you've shared with us so far is you don't give up, you keep working it, figuring it out, like, you notice, okay, the sleeve wasn't really giving you what you thought it was gonna give you, you realize it was a much deeper issue, which is even true of these weight loss medications that are out there, like, there's some things that it'll help you with, but if you still wanna emotionally eat, even if you're on medication, you'll find a way to do it, right? So then if we're thinking about making a commitment of working together for 3 to 6 months, what would you say is the goal of that time? What would you be looking to want to accomplish for yourself?
So I would like to continue with my weight loss in a 3 to 6 month time frame. I would like to lose between 5 to 10 pounds, but really the next step for me that's actually more important for me than weight loss is getting stronger and fitter. So I would really like to um, and also managing my time a little better. So one part I didn't mention is a year ago I had an empty nest, and a year ago I got custody of my grandson. So
Oh,
he's
wow.
one and a half. So I went from empty nest. Um, I'm a manager, and I have about 10 people that work for me, and then I have working on my MBA, and then I got this baby a year ago. So it's been um, I feel like I'm not juggling the balls very well. Taking care of my health and fitness has really completely disappeared as far as any other than taking a few walks on my lunch break. So I really would like to find a way to um, just better. I would like to start lifting weights,
Okay.
and I would like to figure out a better way to maybe meal prep, things that can ease my burden in the evening so that I'm not just so overwhelmed with
Yeah.
life. So I feel like I'm winging it very much right now. And I don't feel like I have a very good plan for how to successfully navigate this because, like everybody else that has gone, so I'm down, I guess I didn't finish, but I'm down 90 pounds total. So, right,
Awesome.
I
Yes.
started at 265, and the fear of regain is always there. So, um, I think that understanding kind of that I have the skills that I need, I have the tools, and I have the academy and all of the different support systems that
Mhm.
to not regain. So um, I guess weight loss, time management, meal planning, meal prep, and
Sure.
then starting some kind of strength training.
And this is a perfect season for you for coaching. I always tell people when you're going through these life transitions, whether you're retiring and going from a working life to retirement, or you get married, you have a kid. In this case, you did get a kid, right? All of these major life shifts basically impact your habits. And so often it's kind of like reestablishing them. Like these are the things that worked for you in your prior life. And then now you need to create a different version of those for your current situation. So let's do this then. All right. So I want you, and I know you're kind of on vacation right now or you're in travel. So when we talk about this, I want you to think about normal everyday life, like
Okay.
meaning your work, your MBA, working towards your MBA, your you said it was 1.5 year old
Yes.
grandson.
Yes.
Okay. So your 1.5 year old grandson. And I want you to think about two different scenarios for me. Okay.
Okay.
The first scenario is, hey, this is scenario A. Hey, Heather, on a weekly basis, I am seeing that I am really struggling with X. It's, this habit, this behavior, or even a thought that leads to a cascade of basically not great choices. And if I could really work on this behavior, habit, or thought, I know I would have much better outcomes with what it is I'm trying to work on, right? So it's us identifying a negative that tends to trip you up and hold you back. But on the flip side of that coin, there's scenario B, which scenario B is, hey, Heather, on a weekly basis, when I am consistent with this behavior, when I do it, I see that I'm so much more successful. I'm so much more on my game. I get such better results, but I'm just not being like really consistent with this behavior. And I know that that's really a big part of what's holding me back. So it's us looking at a negative that tends to hold you back, or a positive than what is added to the week tends to make much better outcomes. So kind of, give me some insight as to what A or B would be for you.
So on the weeks that I sit down and make a plan for the week food wise, and do some meal prepping on Sunday. That frees up a lot of my evening mental stress. So I know that I have always a better week when I take the time to do that, but I'm not
Sure.
consistent with it.
Okay.
Um, and also, on the days that I make time to get out and take a walk, I'm always just in a better headspace for the afternoon. I'm not as tired. So both of those are very positive habits that trying to plan in and find the time to schedule my meals and my shopping and all of those things always helps
Okay.
set me up for success. So
All right. And then what came to mind for you for A? So what would you say is the problematic behavior that might get in the way?
um, I, t- I think that it's trying to, there's two probably. One is a bit of a perfection mindset of, well, if I can't do all the things, don't do anything. And I hear that one pretty consistently, but it's a little easier for me to stop it. It's the living in overwhelm is the second
Mhm.
thought. That is the one that tends to really mess me up because um, my brain will just tell me all the things that I have to do and that there's no way I can do all of those and
Mm.
prioritize everything. So then I sit um, in confusion instead of taking action.
Love that. Okay. Yeah, and that is and as you if you've been paying attention to our time management focus this month, right? Our storyteller is a big reason that we struggle.
Yes.
Not be like right now I actually have one of my current clients timing how long it takes her to do her paper pencil journal and how long it takes her to put it in my fitness pal at night. The most minutes I think she has spent is 4 on any given task. Like one, I think she just sent me one was like 2:39. But what her mind will convince her is, hey, you've got all these important things you got to get done. This is too time consuming. Let's just gloss over this. And so I said, well, let's prove that theory, right? If that theory is true, right? And this is taking you 30 minutes, an hour, like we want to know that. But if we find out it's not, right, then we can argue back a little bit and say, wait a minute, I've timed this now all week long, and it's ranging from 2 minutes to 4 minutes. Is that really gonna break the bank? But your mind is crafty, right? It glosses over, because keep in mind, I want you to think about this, Sarah. Your lower brain wants you to go back to your habit. So if your habit is one of using food to cope, or defaulting to eating out, it's never going to support this idea of you prepping food and meal planning. It's always going to look for those loopholes to get us out of doing that very behavior, knowing that it will later on lead us to, well, we got to eat out now, right? I mean, we
Right.
don't have any food. And it's a cycle that stays consistent. But I love what you said. You said you see that it keeps you stuck in this level of confusion, right?
Right.
So right now, let's just say I go home with you after this week of vacation. The weekends that you're doing this, you're buying the food, you're prepping the food, and then you're doing this, but the ones that you're not, how does that go down? Like, is it, first off, is it all on your calendar?
No. And so that's something I've looked at because I listened to last week's coaching and I listened to, of course, the time management stuff. And I didn't even have a Google Calendar. I just downloaded it yesterday because I knew
Yes.
that we would be talking about this
You
today.
knew we were going
I
there,
did. I
right? Yeah,
did.
I love it.
Yeah, I've listened to several hundred podcasts.
Yes,
So I kind
I
of
love
knew
it.
where we were headed with that. But um, I don't, and my brain is telling me, well, you don't have enough time to do all of the things, and just putting it on a calendar isn't going to help because there's only so many hours. So of course, it has a lot to say about that, and
Yes, most
a
definitely.
lot. But that's something I'm willing to do. But no, right now it's not on the calendar, and I think the food and the food shopping happens. The having a plan with what I'm going to make and having it prepared so that the 1.5-year-old is not screaming as soon as we walk in the door for supper.
Mhm,
The weeks that I have food prepared, it's moves so much smoother through our evening routine,
mhm.
much less stress. So, like the shopping happens, and
Good.
the over shopping probably happens, and it's all I buy a lot of fresh fruits and veggies and healthy foods. I just then if I don't do anything with them, I'm still stuck that night going, "What am I going to make?" I don't even have a plan for dinner, and it's 5 p.m. And so I think I'm just missing that next step.
Sure, absolutely. So let me so right now you do your paper pencil journal, and each day you write something in for dinner, is that correct?
I do, and I usually give myself a couple of options, with that.
Okay.
Um,
And how often is dinner actually happening with one of those options?
uh, I would say usually what I plan, like what I pick in the morning, if I give myself two or three options, I almost always put like breakfast for an option. So that way, if all else fails, I could just make some eggs or something. So that way I stick to my plan. So that's kind of like my backup plan. But um, I think that just deciding in the morning for the evening hasn't been as much of an issue. Um, I just feel like I'm maybe not making the best choices because I'm deciding that morning and I don't know if I even have, I haven't made a plan or a
Gotcha.
menu or even know what I want to eat. So I'm
Right.
just kind of defaulting to something that's easy, that's available versus having a good plan to set myself up for success and weight loss and,
Yeah.
hitting my goals.
Okay, so since you got this awesome Google Calendar, okay, the fun thing about the Google Calendar is that it's never a done one and done. Okay, it's an organic document that is going to change over time. Where I the reason I see people struggle with time management is the same reason they struggle with calories or meal planning or anything else. They think, well, I wrote this meal plan down and I didn't follow it, so what's the point? Like, you'll hear people say that, right? What's
Right,
the
right.
point? Or they'll block out time on their Google Calendar, and they'll find, okay, well, I didn't get this done. I That took way longer. So what's the point in even doing all this work? Because nothing is actually, and what you're supposed to do is kind of almost like throw everything on there that you've got to get done. And then as you're doing it, learn how long it actually takes you. Learn how much time actually needs to go to these tasks, because everything you put on there initially is a good guesstimate, but it's probably not accurate. Like, if you block out time to check email or say work on your MBA, you're probably going to say, okay, I know I got this research paper. I think it's going to take me 2 hours, but you get in there and you realize, no, I spent more like 3. Well, then the
Right.
next time you plan for it, you need to plan 3 hours, not 2. And that's where this is where the breakdown happens, because if you just set everything in there and say, oh good, I filled out my Google Calendar, now I'm done. No, you should be checking in on that daily, just like you do your food log. And you should be modifying it, because I had one client, she thought she would do her food planning on like a Thursday night. She's actually come to find out it fits better into her day on a Saturday when she takes her kids to their sporting event. So she's actually picked it up, dragged and dropped it to Saturday morning, because trial and error, she figured out Thursdays weren't happening, but Saturday morning is, right? So our calendar needs to reflect our reality. It's not like it's not like we put it on there and it has to happen. We're going to be super militant about it, because it's got to be flexible. Do you see that?
Right. Right.
Okay. So right now, you said grocery shopping is always happening. Does it happen on the same day?
It does not. It,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So is it happening towards the beginning or the end of the week?
Um,
More
Normally
often.
towards the end of the week,
Like
normally
a like
towards
somewhere
like on a
between.
Friday, maybe a Friday grocery pickup or Thursday. So
Okay.
it
So it's
normally
either a
it's
Thursday, Friday timeframe. Okay.
right.
And that's not right now on your Google Calendar, right?
It is not.
Okay. Do you have steady work hours at your job?
Yes, I
Okay.
work yeah, the same hours every day.
Great. And are those blocked out on your Google Calendar?
No.
Okay. So do you have something to write with?
Yes.
Okay. So when we get off the call sometime during this trip, I just want you, and this is a very simple thing to do. Google Calendar is super easy to use. You would just block things out. I would color code them, so that way you know how much time you're spending on work related to school, related to health. Because like if everything for work is yellow and you notice, oh my gosh, my whole calendar is yellow. Then that might be a good visible indicator that you need to diversify some of your time and your attention, right? Just like
Right.
if your MBA starts to take up all of your time and it's pink, well, then it's a great way. Just glancing at somebody's calendar, I can tell where their priorities are if they color code by bucket. Does that make
It
sense?
does. It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the very first thing I'd like you to do is we're going to block out the basics, which is sleep,
Okay.
your meals. Okay. Like, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then next for most people is work, because that's what pays for everything. So work is usually the next one. Now, because you are doing your MBA, I would want you to block out. Do you have online classes you're
I
taking?
do. I
Okay.
do.
So I want you to block out your classes, and then you also have study time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you may want to do that, like classes is one, study time is a different one. Now, since Thursday and Friday seem to be kind of where the grocery haul falls, for us to make a plan for the week, even if it's just breakfast for dinner every night, we just want to write that down. Like if we're going to have scrambled eggs and toast every night, cool. Let's write that down. And you might find you could probably create a couple templates for yourself of just some simple go-to dinners that you guys like on rotation. And I a lot of times for people who are in your position, super, super busy, they'll do like an ABC week, where A might be like a couple nights we do a breakfast dinner, one night we do a couple frozen pizzas, one night we do, and then that way they can just kind of regurgitate those. And that way you're not eating the same meals every single week, but you've got enough variety that it's not, boring, but it's also not like you're having to recreate everything every week. Does anything like that feel doable for you?
It does. And it's probably a really good idea because the toddler is not very adventurous with his meal choices yet. So, um, which a lot of times I do make separate things.
Sure.
But yeah, figuring that out and just kind of doing a plan that doing 2 or 3 plans that I can just kind of rotate back to,
Yeah.
especially if I take a minute and go back and look at my,
Food
I'll
logs.
say my food logs and
Yeah,
I have logged my food every day since last June when
that's awesome.
started. So like I have those weeks where I did see like some movement and success and felt good, and I could try to recreate some of those maybe
Yeah.
into a weekly calendar.
Yeah, because let's just say you do the ABC week, and then you actually could even create a shopping list that goes with that week. it will streamline your whole process. And what I'd like to recommend for the 1-year-old, or soon to be 2-year-old, is I would have the meals, that you want to expose them to, but then I would maybe keep in rotation, say 3 meals that are, no fuss meals.
Right.
And that way you've got a backup option for him. So it's like, we might try this. Hey, it ended up all over the floor. We'll try this instead, right? And
Right.
that way, because one of the reasons you're probably also feeling stress is because you're trying to get him to eat and trying not to get him to freak out or have upset moments. And so the more simple you can make his eating, the less stress you're going to feel, and probably the better you're going to eat. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And so when you create these 3 weeks of meals, what I want you to think about is, okay, let's say tonight we're going to do burgers and whatever. And okay, he might eat a little bit of ground beef. He might eat a little bit of sweet potato. Maybe he'll have some of those things. What are some of the backup options you could have that are your kind of trusted go to? And just plan those as alternates. Just like you have 3 plans for you for dinner,
Right.
give him at least 2, because at that age, you might be beneficial for you to have something like that to go to.
Right. I think that that's a great idea, especially like yesterday he had dinner and it's a dinner that I know he likes, but it wasn't happening, right? Like
Yeah.
he wouldn't eat it. And it's something I know he enjoys. So having something right then and that I could just alternate to and having that planned out would make it a lot less stressful and make me a lot less reactive to the situation and trying to scramble and figure out what to do.
Yeah, and keep in mind this first 3 weeks of meal plans you create, they don't have to be set in stone. So what I mean by that is, let's say you get burnt out on 1 week, you could regenerate a new week. And as his taste changes, he matures, because that's the one thing about this age, they change so quickly, like their sleep patterns, their preferences. So you may have to make, going back to our Google Calendar discussion we had a second ago, you have to look at these as organic documents, meaning that
Right.
they aren't set in stone, fix it and forget it. Like within 6 months, you're going to be making alterations, because he's not going to want to eat the same things he's eating today, right? So
Right.
there needs, and that's where probably for you that all or nothing thinking has harmed you in the past, because our brain wants to say, oh, good, I created 3 meal plans. I'm done now. Nah, like for right now, you're done. But like in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, well, as I see him phasing out of these things, I'm just going to have to go back and make some changes to this. Or if our family says, hey, we hate taco night now. Okay, I pull taco night off and I put something else in there, right? Like it's that willingness to change it up as you need to. Does that make
Right.
sense?
It
Okay.
does. Yeah.
So here's what we should see so far on your Google Calendar: sleep time blocked out, meal time blocked out, work blocked out, online classes blocked out. And
Hmm.
then I would say shoot for Thursday for right now as your grocery pickup day, just so that way you have something on the calendar. And if you can't do it that day or you forget, you can always bump it to Friday. You could drag and drop it. And if
Right.
you do that for a month, what you might notice is, okay, most weeks I'm getting it on Thursday, but every once in a while I'm doing it on a Friday. But it'll give you a more concise idea of where you're actually doing the grocery pickup, which then means you have to order the food that day or the day before.
Either one. Usually I can get it because I do like a 5 p.m. pickup. So I can usually order it that morning or the day before. So it would be probably smarter to have it loaded in the day before.
Okay. So then let's just plan on Wednesday for right now. Put that on
Hmm.
your calendar to put the online order in, right? And that should be a heck of a lot more simple for you if you have the ABC week where you've already created the grocery list.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think it would too. And then, so once we block that out, as far as this prep time is concerned,
Hmm.
what does that look like time wise for you? Like when you say that, what does that look like?
Usually it's on like a Sunday afternoon. I will cook up like a breakfast skillet that I'm going to portion out, and then I'll do something maybe for lunches. I don't usually meal prep dinners at this point, but so I try to at least get in and have like my fruit cut up and then like do some lunch and breakfast preps. It takes probably 2 to 3 hours
Okay.
total if I am doing if
And
I'm
let me
just doing one meal, it's of course, half that.
Sure. And let me ask you this. So, because of the season of life you're in, are you typically in the kitchen on the weekends, like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or do you guys eat out a lot right now?
We don't eat out much at all.
Okay.
I don't much like fast food
Mhm.
in general, and taking a toddler to a restaurant isn't that fun. So we really, and I don't eat out a lot anyway, so we
Yeah,
don't eat out that much. So I would rather just go home and have something quick. So I
sure.
do at least like try. I've heard you tell other people get a couple frozen meals to keep in the
Sure.
freezer just for the
Mhm.
quick nights, and I try to keep that available. But no, we don't. We I'm in the kitchen usually during the week at night only, and then of course on the weekends I usually do at least a breakfast and a dinner.
Okay, because here's what I would suggest for you to maybe think about is what if you were to do so if I'm going in the kitchen to make breakfast anyway, right? I'm pulling out the stuff to make my family breakfast. What if you were to then also because now you actually would have a plan, right? You'd say, okay, we're in a week. My planned breakfast is X. What if while you're making your family breakfast, you're also prepping your breakfast for the week? So, say you're doing overnight oats, right? You just set the jars out, you plop all the oats in, you do it while you're making the breakfast. Have you ever tried that approach before?
I have not. It makes a lot of sense, but no, I have not tried it that way.
Yeah, and the reason I'm suggesting this to you as an option is because when I first started my journey, like in my maintenance journey, I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, every Sunday is gonna be food prep day, and I'm gonna spend 2 or 3 hours." And I kinda got burned out on it, quite honestly, where I felt like it was this huge time commitment, and I'm like, "Wait a minute. I'm already in the kitchen 2 or 3 times a day making breakfast, lunches, dinners. Why not just food prep for the next day now?" So, like for instance, yesterday I was making I threw raw chicken in my crock pot, barbecue sauce, and some other things. I made what I ate for lunch today, my pulled barbecue chicken, and I was making a soup for my kids for dinner last night, which also acted as lunch for today. So I always am like, okay, what is coming up tomorrow? What am I going to eat tomorrow? And again, you'll have your list, and or in this case, you know you're going to eat the same breakfast pretty much every day. And if you were just to take a couple meals where you just did one thing, not everything, just one thing, but you did it for the whole week or the next day's meals, what if meal prep looked less busy? How would that feel?
I think that would definitely feel less overwhelming. That takes the overwhelm out of it
Mhm.
because thinking about scheduling in that time, putting it on the calendar or telling myself I'm going to do it is completely different than the toddler allowing me to do that for
Sure.
that long of a period of time without
Yes.
interruption. So I think that by breaking it up like that, even if I did like part of it Saturday and did the breakfast part when I was cooking breakfast, and then maybe Sunday at dinner I could kind of do the same thing for my lunches, and splitting it up to where it's two
Yeah.
or three smaller chunks of time instead of one big chunk that I have a hard time realistically implementing. So
Yeah, and like just as an example, I'm big on prepping proteins more than anything. So whenever I go in the kitchen, I'll be making whatever's for dinner, but I might throw a big pot of hard boiled eggs on the stove, and I just leave them in the shell. But I put them in the fridge; they're already ready to go. Or like yesterday, I threw raw chicken in my crock pot while I was making soup, which was cooking and prepping my protein for today. So that way I could throw it on my plate, wrap, salad, whatever. And if you just think and this is what the question to ask yourself, Sarah, is what's one thing I can prep for future me? And it doesn't have to be a big elaborate thing. Like if tomorrow night you guys are doing tacos, what if you just browned your beef and put the taco seasoning in and then packaged it up and it's ready to go? So when you come home at 5 o'clock, you're just heating and eating. You know what I mean?
right. No,
Does
I
that
like that idea a lot.
yeah, and so and you might be helpful to put a little Post-it note in your kitchen that says, "1 food prep item." That's it. That's all you focus on. 1 food prep item. It could be hard boiling eggs, browning ground beef, could be thrown and honestly, your crock pot could be a saving grace for you because if you're doing stuff on the stove, you could throw something in the crock pot and maybe it's what you're gonna eat tomorrow. But you
Right.
cook it today, you package it up, and it's ready to go, so you pop it in the microwave for you guys while the toddler's eating, and it's not like you're having to cook anything. And it's really a cool process once you implement it because you start to realize, oh, one, I'm never out of food.
Right.
And two, I'm never really spending more than maybe an extra 5 or 10 minutes in the kitchen to do these things because honestly, they don't take that much time. It's just it's like if you feel like you gotta pause your life for 3 hours on Sunday and hope that your kiddo is gonna cooperate, that's a huge gamble. Whereas if you're already in the kitchen making lunch and they know they're gonna eat, you just putting one more thing in there is not a big deal.
Right. I think that's definitely more realistic and manageable, uh, and something I haven't really considered. So I really like that idea. I think that could help me a lot.
Yeah, and that's again, this is doable if you've already done weeks A, B, and C, because then you can just look at the sheet and say, okay, well, tomorrow we're probably gonna have tacos, or tomorrow we're gonna have spaghetti and meatballs. So what's one thing I could do for that meal now? And it might just be chopping up some onions and garlic, but that would be one thing less you'd have to do, or maybe it's pre-cooking something, right? It's
Right.
really just checking in to see, or oh wow, half of this week we're gonna have salads. Maybe I go ahead and make my salad for today, but I take a bunch of empty containers, and that might be the one thing you wanna invest in. If I'm making a salad for today, I have 6 other containers,
Mhm.
so I'm, like, divvying up the salad stuff all at once, and they're already packaged and ready to go. So, whatever one day I have salad when I've gone grocery shopping, I'm making 6 or 8 salads, not 1, right? But
Right.
it's all done at one time.
Yeah.
So that might be one thing that if you don't have enough containers or Tupperware that would be appropriate, that might be one thing to invest some money in so you're fully stocked with storage containers.
Right. I think I'm in pretty decent shape for that. So, but I really like, and like you said, with the ABC plans, it really will even be easier because then after the first week of doing it and prepping ahead, I'll know exactly what preps ahead easy, and it kind of takes some of the thought work out of it. I'm not going to have to sit and figure out what I need to do. By
Yeah.
the time I rotate through them once, I'll know that, hey, this is going to set me up for next week. I can go ahead and do this portion of it because I already know that from last time. So I think that that just takes one more level of overwhelm off of the plate too.
And with the stage of life you're in right now, not seeing 3 hours blocked out on a Sunday afternoon is gonna feel like a little bit of a bonus to you, because now if this starts to get incorporated the way I hope it does for you, it should be like, "Oh, I'm doing 15 minutes of food prep here, 20 minutes of food prep there," while I'm already cooking other meals or prepping other meals. So now you get this bonus of 2 to 3 hours on a Sunday, which could go to you studying for your
Right.
exams. It could be spending time quality time with your family because you are so busy the rest of the week, right? It could be something you would prefer to be doing with that 2 to 3 hours
Right.
versus this. So does all that feel doable, what we
It
talked
very
about?
much does, yes, and it takes care of one of the biggest, one of the biggest issues I think I have. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something I'm going to implement and try to incorporate. I think I my brain tries to tell me, you don't want to eat the same things on repeat, but the reality is we all mostly do
Pretty much
anyway,
do,
right?
yeah.
So having it documented out and saying, hey, this week is this, and just knowing and having a grocery list with it's going to make it so much easier and just free up so much mental capacity, really.
Yeah, and I just wanna encourage you, and this I just feel like this has been a theme today I've been hitting on with so many people. The voice you hear in your head is not helpful. It's
No.
it's always trying to lead you back to your eating behaviors. It's always looking for those loopholes where you're gonna do your old behaviors to lead you back to your eating behaviors. So when you hear it say these things to you, say, "Hey, you know what? Let's just wait and see." And or even reverse the story and say, okay, so what if I get a little bored with my food? If it gives me a lot less stress and pressure, what if I chose to see that as the win for this choice? And as my kiddo gets older,
Mhm.
I may get more time in my day to be more creative. But the state, and this is the big one, right? When you got a 1.5 year old, the stage of life you're in right now is temporary. When they're 3 and 4, totally different experience, right?
Right.
You're just trying to get through the next 6 months, and then
Right.
after that, the next 6 months, and that's why your mind talking to you about all this stuff, it's so temporary. Like, yeah, eating meals on repeat for the next 6 months may not be your greatest excitement, but if it means you're a lot less stressed, a lot less toddler screaming, things flow better, it might be worth the trade off. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Alright. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and keeping in mind that it is, a season,
Yes.
and it's also flexible. Like there are things I can do to it's not set in stone, like you said. it's going to change and it's going to adapt, and I can figure out what works best for me.
Absolutely, and each phase, what works best for you will be altered, right? So,
Yes, it'll
keeping
be
in mind
different.
so let's do this. I want you to give me the rundown of what it is we're working on. So, say that I'm talking to you in a month from now when the voting's done, and I'm coming back to you and I'm like, "Okay, Sarah, how are we doing with X, Y, and Z?" I want you to kinda tell me what I'm gonna be looking at when I come back to you in a month or so.
Okay, so I will have my Google Calendar filled out. I'll
Yeah,
have time blocked off for sleep, meals, work, some class and study time. On Wednesdays, I'll have my grocery order put in and I'll do a pickup on Thursdays.
okay.
I'm going to have a rotating 3-week calendar of food and a grocery list to accompany that. That's going to help me eliminate all of that time thinking about what to eat, which will be
Yes.
great. Um, I'm going to have some specific color coded blocks for work, school, for health, and for family time so that I can make sure my life is a little more balanced. It'll be a little unbalanced, but it's also for
Sure,
a season too.
sure. Absolutely.
And then I'm going to identify my opportunities to do my meal prep in small chunks as I'm cooking versus in a big window block that I don't have available.
Right, and here's the things I want you to start saying to yourself on repeat. Whenever you walk into the kitchen to make a meal, I want you to say, "What is my one food prep item I'm gonna do today?" That's it,
Yeah,
one food
I
prep.
wrote that down.
It could be boil eggs, it could be boil pasta, like, you have a toddler, toddlers love pasta. So, it might be, "Oh, let me throw about a box of pasta in, so I have pasta on hand, so when we come home for dinner, I can give them some pasta, I can give them some, protein, I can give them some fruit, however it is, you work it out."
Right.
One food prep thing, and then the other thing is when you hear talking in your head, I want you just to say, "Who is doing the talking?" Because one of the most important things I've learned is if I'm the one hearing it, like, can you hear me talking to you right now?
Yes.
Would you say Heather is talking?
Yes.
Okay. When you're sitting there on the couch and you hear this voice say, "Oh my gosh, we won't have time to do this. Eating these meals on repeat will be boring." If you are observing that conversation, you're hearing it, even though it's inside your own head. If it was your intellectual higher level brain doing the talking, right, you would just know. It would just be your knowledge. But when you hear that verbal talking in your head, which we all can relate to because we've all heard it,
Right.
you have to say, "Well, who is that doing the talking right now?" Because there's nobody standing outside of me and I can tell I'm not going crazy, right? Like I can hear this conversation and I'm observing it. Well, then of course, if there's not another person in the room and you're hearing this conversation in your head, it is your lower brain because your lower brain can only communicate to you. It can't exist outside of you. It's not able to borrow another person's voice and talk to you. It can only borrow your voice and talk to you. And it's there to try to keep you safe in its own way. It's trying to help keep you comforted in your own way. It's trying to be a narrator to your life. It's trying to make sense of everything because that making sense of everything drops down your anxiety and stress. So
Right.
even if it's not the most helpful story, oh my gosh, well, we can't possibly do that because of this, this, and this. It's like it makes you feel better because you feel like somebody's talking to you about it and helping you figure it out, even though it's always leading you back to the same place.
Right.
So just start asking yourself, who's talking right now? Because I know I'm hearing something. I'm aware of this conversation and it can't be me talking because I'm listening to it. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
And those two questions, what am I going to food prep today when I'm making lunch? And who is talking in my head right now? Will help you come back to this place of presence where you're like, "Oh, yeah, I don't need to trust that voice. I don't need to
Right.
listen. Let's just wait and see what happens. Let's just try it and see what happens." Because that voice will never want you to do something new, uncomfortable, or different. That's the whole point of it being a habit brain.
Right. Right.
Like all of those things are unappealing to that. So you actually saying, "No, let's just wait and see what happens. It's okay. We're just trying it." I'm sure you probably heard me say this before where I would say, like, I treat everything like a scientific study because in
Mhm.
my mind, if I thought I was committing to something, there was a lot more drama about it. But if I treated it like, "Oh, let's just try this for 6 weeks, let's try this for 4 weeks," all of a sudden I could learn, I could try new things, I could learn, but without the commitment that created my lower brain to go off kilter, right?
Right.
So just give those two things a try. Does that sound good?
It does, yeah, and I've taken your advice before when it starts getting really out of hand to speak out loud because that
Yes,
they can't be talking at the same time,
correct.
essentially.
Yeah, and not
So,
only that, but you wouldn't verbally say the things you're hearing in your head because it
no,
sounds nonsensical. It's like as soon as you say, "Okay, well, what I think I hear you're saying is that I shouldn't prep all these meals because it's gonna be boring, and how is that gonna help me with eating consistently, losing weight, dealing with my toddler, oh wait, it's not. Like you can
right,
immediately see the pitfall in the logic when you verbally say it out loud and say, this is actually going to help me with my weight loss goals, right?
right,
No, it's going to help me have the toddler be happier because I'm not prepping all these things ahead of time. No, like you can see that there is no logic behind it. It's just reacting. It's just reacting to a thought, and it's trying to keep you comfortable, which means you
right,
doing the same things.
right. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
And that sounds like a perfect plan. So we'll go ahead and I got all that written down. You work on that. You can check in with me in the academy if you
Okay.
want on these. That would be great. And then I'm going to wish the very best for you when it comes to the voting. I hope
Thank
everything
you.
goes well. And is there anything else you wanted to close with today before we wrap?
No, I appreciate this opportunity and just being able to sit down and talk with you about it. A lot of the things that we talked about are part of a couple of the focuses that we had in the membership this
Yeah.
year already. So it's stuff that, and of course, my brain then told me you don't have time to work on that
Yes.
with
Or
everything
wait,
else.
that
So
doesn't apply to me, does it? That girl, she needed to hear that, but, I'm
yeah,
somehow different. Yes, it's
I'm
very
special unicorns, right? But
yes.
I do appreciate being able to talk through and make a plan that's specific to me and what I've got going on, and
Yeah.
some real solid ideas that I can implement. So I just
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for your time. And again, I wish you all the best and
Uh,
you take care and just keep in contact with me in the academy, okay?
I sure will. Thank you.
All right, wonderful.
All right.
Hey, you made it to the very end. I hope you enjoyed this call with Sarah. And I just want to encourage you, if you are interested in voting for any of our candidates, we are doing that on September 2nd. And to do it, all you have to do is become a podcast premium subscriber. Go to halfsizeme.com/fan.